All right, let's see.
This is stolen IP. Is this game stolen? Here we go. Let's watch it. Why not? This is interesting, I'm sure.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Onepeg, and in today's video, we're going to talk about Dark and Darker.
We really, like, bro, like, come on. Like, we gotta dial this up a bit. Like, we got, like, I remember, like, drama alert, like, that fucking earth comes in, and it's like, da-da, like, the music is fucking lit, and then, like, the screen changes, and it's fucking Keemstar with the G Fuel hat, and he's like, what's up? It's your boy, Killer Keemstar here, you know, and you're ready to hear all about
and I'm just like, chill.
12-year-old on TikTok said 3 years ago, whenever he was 9, that he's getting canceled by his middle school audience for, right? Like, you're fucking ready for that. Yeah, come on.
See, there's the possibility that Dark and Darker may have, I guess, stolen some assets, possibly an entire game from Nexon. So this morning, this morning my time anyway, a Korean staff blogger by the name of Woody posted an article on the popular gaming site This Is Game that stated that Dark and Darker may have been created from stolen assets from the gaming media megacorporation Nexon. To be fair, this entire article was written in Korean, and I'm using Google Translate to the best of its ability to translate this, but for the most part, I think the translation is accurate, and you definitely get the idea. And for those unfamiliar, Nexon is a Seoul, South Korea-based company that is most famous for having created the game MapleStory. Although Nexon has developed a
sticker,
or it was a sticker.
MapleStory was the genesis of microtransactions.
That's true. MapleStory was where microtransactions started. The sticker was from my daughter. My 2-year-old put a sticker on my shirt, and then the shirt went through the wash, and like that's the glue from the sticker, like just left over, like it's not coming out, you know. But I love it, so who cares?
Transactions.
Of other games, all of them for the most part are gacha games.
Yep.
They're games that are derived from taking money.
So that means that Dark and Darker will have gacha in it. There it is.
For if Nexon gets it, they will. And whatnot, skins, all of that other stuff, trying to incentivize all of us into going in as whales into whatever game it is that they've been producing. Before I get into the meat of this video, though, I want to be very clear that there are no sources, actual sources, being cited in the article. They don't reference anyone at Nexon. They don't state that they have a source at Nexon, and they do not link to any external source. They don't even state that they had a conversation with anyone at Nexon or anyone close to Nexon, or provide any other media than a few screenshots that were taken from a games showcase that was teasing a project from August 2021. Also, while I have attempted to reach out to Terry, the CEO of Ironmace Games, as well as a couple of other developers that I've been working closely with at the development team over the course of the various playtests,
I would definitely say that, like, if you look at these screenshots, like this screenshot,
well, that's Dark and Darker.
Screenshot from the Nexon game.
That's Dark and Darker.
Exactly like Dark and Darker.
That is Dark and Darker.
I
have attempted to reach out to Terry, the CEO of Ironmace Games, as well as a couple of other developers that I've been working closely with at the development team.
Wait, let me see if I can see.
Of Ironmace Games, as well as a couple of other developers that I've been working closely with at the.
Is this exactly the same? Maybe a bit, but like not really. I mean,
development team over the.
It might be.
I think it's just like that looked close.
I have not been able to reach
that fireball looked close.
From any of them about this, and given the time of day that I'm recording this, it's likely that they are kind of going off to sleep right now. You know, they've been working 30 and 40-hour days at a clip trying to make sure that the servers stayed up, so I don't blame them for trying to get some sleep. Okay, on to the article. The author states that the majority of people that are working for Ironmace Games right now, developing Dark and Darker, are from a mass exodus of employees that at one time worked for Nexon on a project coined Project P3. The article alleges that the developer... That's a big accusation. Holy...
Hey, thanks for not covering up my face.
Disenfranchised with being told to stop development on
thanks, Asmon.
What is being coined
Appreciate you, buddy.
Project P3. The article then states that in March of 2022, there was an interview that was done with an executive at Nexon, where the executive stated that Project P3 had been halted and shifted its development away from Project P3, which was being designed as...
I'm covering my own face, that's true.
Where in the screenshots you can see that it looks relatively similar to that of Dark and Darker, to a project... I think that, like, one problem, too, is that, like, you'd have to really go down into the weeds and actually look at the assets were legitimately stolen or not, because Dark and Darker is a low fantasy game. It has like monsters and like things like that, but other than that, most things are rooted in reality.
So barrels look like barrels, bricks look like bricks.
Yep, agree.
Called or coined as P7, which was being developed to be a Tarkov-like shooter experience. The article went further to say that in September of 2021, Nexon posted a job listing looking for someone that specialized in data gathering for tactical movement and firearms handling, between how the firearms were supposed to be held in the hands to posture, moving between cover, etc. This coincides with the idea that the project was shifted away
no
from
one covers my face but me
experience to something that was much more
like
Tarkov-like.
Yeah.
Now, if we line this up with timing, the article states that the corporation for Ironmace, according to corporate filings, was created in October of 2021, shortly after this job posting was made. So this at least seems like it has a little bit of merit. The article then goes further to say that the development team that had been working on Project P3, which now was moving to the Tarkov-esque P7, became jaded with having to move away from that project, which they apparently deemed to be something that would be successful for Nexon, and instead started leaking assets from P3 that they had been working on to the outside, going so far, I guess, as to have been caught in some of these instances and disciplined, again, according to the article. I know that I keep saying according to the article, but again, this is literally the only source that exists, and there are no other sources listed, so I apologize. Subsequently, the article also...
I would also say, like, this is something that, like, if there's no sources and there's no evidence, like, you could make evidence. For example, like, let's say you had a screenshot of this game that, like, Nexon was working on, and you had a side-by-side of that game and Dark and Darker, or a side-by-side of certain assets and Dark and Darker assets, and it was a one-for-one similarity. You wouldn't need as much evidence because the evidence is evident, right? It's just right there in front of everybody. But we're not really seeing a lot of that. I don't think that I've seen any evidence that makes this compelling.
No, there isn't any. So there's actually another piece to this. So another development that's kind of come out, or another realization that I ended up having after I made this video, is it's been a year and a half, right? Like, it's October of 2021 was when they started the company. Since then, there's been September, October, December, and then the playtest that just happened, right? Or January, and then the playtest that just happened. In that time, they went from, they had an August playtest too. They went from having 200 concurrent to 10,000 to 30,000 to 60,000, and now 108 whatever thousand it was at peak. So somewhere around like the 30,000 viewer mark, you would think that if Nexon figured they had anything, they probably would have went at them then. Because 30,000 concurrent players on a playtest is pretty huge, right? Like, they probably would have tried to recapture the IP. At that point, they would have, like, levied some type of lawsuit or something, but there's been nothing filed since. And there would have, like, you would have done it by now. You would have just crushed it, but they didn't.
And believes that the core team of P3
plus all of the assets, like, if you go and look, most all of the assets that they are using for the game are all from Unreal's, like, assets shop. They're all like prefab assets. They're just retail assets that anyone could go and buy and construct a game with.
3 has either...
And they were criticized for having the troll boss that they just introduced. They were criticized for having the troll boss be a prefab asset that somebody just bought off the store. But the response for that, obviously, is that they don't have a lot of money, and they're just trying to make a game with whatever they get their hands on. And then eventually, like, game gets better, they get some new modelers and some 3D artists and stuff, and then they just replace the prefab stuff with, like, more homegrown things.
All quit or been fired, and following
that's what assets are for,
together to create Dark and Darker. It also says that there are some members of that core old P3 team that are still working for Nexon on Project P7. Why they went so far as to say that, I'm not sure.
What about
Perhaps
P4?
That is the source that they are getting the information. Finally, the article states that Nexon...
Where's P4, 5, and 6? Maybe 6, 8, 7?
The possibility of
7, 8, 9
taking legal action against
dad jokes
Ironmace, but has been contemplating on what it is that they could or should be doing. Now, if, of course, Nexon has the ability to prove that Ironmace has actually been the people both leaking the information and utilizing the assets to their own benefit,
where the M15
has yet to be seen. But if they
what happened to the M15
can do that, perhaps then they obviously have some legal ramifications that they could take against Ironmace. But I think we all can agree that that would be a big shame.
So to this, I have a few thoughts. To the folks at Ironmace Games, and I hope those guys, if they are watching this, have stuck around long enough to see this.
I don't think that the Ironmace Games, I don't think they need to issue a statement about this at all.
I completely agree.
It's a baseless accusation.
I completely agree with that too.
They don't have to address this in any capacity. It's not there. It's not there.
Nice pause face.
Yeah, of course, right? And like if there's actual proof, then they can address it or anything like that. Like, yeah, it's just bullshit.
Mm-hmm. From me. I completely agree.
I love you guys. Everyone that I talk to thinks that you guys are fantastic game devs and you're doing everything that you are doing for us as gamers and for your game all the right way. We think that you guys are creating something unique, fun, frustrating, engaging, and addicting in all of the right doses. Personally, I know that if I get killed in a game like this, I get frustrated, but not to the point of wanting to quit. I get frustrated in that I want to build back up as fast as I possibly can to get back to the thing that I'm trying to beat. And the struggle bus is where I have always tried to remain as a gamer. I like the growth curve, having to build myself up again. Once you kind of get there, it's boring. You know?
Completely agree.
Second, if what was said in the article is true, honestly, good for Ironmace.
MMO's the same way, dude.
Stealing, obviously, but this has a very Robin Hood-esque feel to it, where Terry and SDF and their band of merry men are trying to take on and beat the media conglomerate that is fleecing everyone for all of their pennies.
I don't agree with that. I don't at all, because I think it predicates the assumption that it's okay to steal from something if it meets your arbitrary set of standards.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I don't
agree
like
with
that. Because
that's fair.
Like, for example, there's people that steal from Walmart. There's people that steal from, you know, any of these big box stores, and they say, oh, well, it's okay that I steal from them because these places have a lot of money.
That's fair too.
Like, where do you draw the line? Like, where's the line where that's okay? I mean, morally, I mean,
some kid walks through and steals like a pack of gum. You're going to be like, why is that piece of shit stealing that pack of gum?
Something like that.
I agree.
I think that let's look at this realistically. It's not really a big deal. If you're stealing an entire game premise and an entire functionality from a game, then yeah, that's bad. But
if it's a direct rip,
just stealing a fucking barrel and a handful of assets, I mean, cry me a river. I don't think it's a big deal. Now, obviously, should they have to, you know, reconcile that with the company? Absolutely. And also, like,
this actually happened with Dota 2 when Dota 2 was brand new, and Valve and Blizzard. And a lot of the reason why half of whatever the champions in Dota ended up being renamed from the Warcraft 3 map was because Blizzard came at them and said, you're in breach. These are all trademarked. You can't name these characters these things. So they had to change the names of a bunch of characters. Like Skeleton King was named Leoric at the time, and they had to change the name from Leoric to Skeleton King because Leoric was trademarked by Diablo, right? So there was a lot of that in the early days of Dota 2, where they tried to nail them for trademark infringement, and they had to just change names so that they weren't going to end up getting sued. So, you know, but that kind of stuff you can change, right? Like just on the fly. So if it's a barrel, right, or if Nexon comes at them with like a list of assets that they say that Dark and Darker stole from them, the devs can just modify it, and then they won't end up having to worry about court either.
It's like gacha games are bad for sure, but they're not scamming people. They're just
fair.
Gamba.
That's fair.
It's video game Gamba.
That's fair.
So yeah,
I mean, I think it's predatory. And I hate the business practice because I do think that they play into people's inability to control their impulses depending on how their brain chemistry is set up in a lot of cases. You know, there's been a lot of studies about that kind of shit. People with poor impulse control get kind of like preyed upon by Gamba companies. But I mean, it's a viable business model, right? Like they have the right to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's bad, but it doesn't mean that it's okay to steal from them. I, in general, do not like the idea of people justifying stealing, because I think that it's always mental gymnastics, and the more that you explore that justification of stealing, the more it becomes transparently self-serving.
But I completely agree with him in what he's saying. I did have the opinion of them like when I made the video, in my heart of hearts, I'm like, Nexon, like, good, them, like, screw them over, you know? But I agree with the way that he said what he said, you know? I mean, it's a viable business. It's not like they're stealing money from people, you know, Nexon, I mean. Like he said, it's just gamba, so.
Own website, the Ironmace site, states that they're tired of companies fleecing people.
Yeah,
for
had my emotions on my sleeve, yeah. Because I like the game, and I like the devs, and I want their game to succeed, and I don't want Nexon trying to get their greedy hands on it.
Their money, or being run like online casinos, or selling their souls for an easy payday.
Strengthen your supportive feeling of him and his content. I like Asmon a lot. I've always thought that he was incredibly fair. I'm actually flattered that he watched my video and that he gave it the credence that he did, and I'm surprised that he put it in a recording. I think that's awesome.
We all know that Nexon would have stuffed as many microtransactions into the gamma container of this game as they possibly could.
Well, that's their right to do so.
That's true. That's true. It's an whole thing,
right,
but it's
to
true.
Be able to make it a pay-to-win gamba game.
Yeah, they could.
Whether you like that or not, that doesn't matter. They have a right to make a pay-to-win game.
That's fair.
Currently, right? If the laws change, then it's different. But right now, it's their right. I totally hate that. I don't want it. But it is their, God-given right to make the game they want to make.
That's true.
To milk every gamer for every penny that they could possibly squeeze out of them. And that would kill the charm that this game has created for so many. Third.
Yeah, I think that everybody can simultaneously agree that if you take a game like Dark and Darker and you make it like super pay to win, it would kill the game, but it's their right to be able to kill their own game. And yes, it would be bad, but I still think that they should have autonomy to do what they want with their own stuff.
Yeah. Sure.
It's very possible that Ironmace is going to have a legal battle on its hands. And if so, I hope they come out of this as unscathed as they possibly can. Because the last thing that we need as gamers is another decent indie game dev losing directorial control to another Activision fleece machine. I'm looking at you, Bungie. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for this one. Thanks so much for coming and checking it out. My name again is Onepeg. You can find me at twitch.tv/Onepeg, where I stream every day around 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, please consider...
Yeah, I think that this is my... well, let me finish.
Consider subbing the channel here, or follow me on Twitter.
He's like looking at comments and stuff.
I'll see you in the next one, okay? Peace.
Okay. I think in general, like, I agree with, like... I agree with how he feels. I just... acknowledge that how he feels isn't how we can run things.
That's
we can't
that's
run
fair.
Things where
that's fair.
If you feel like a company is being disingenuous or bad, it's okay to ignore the rules.
There's a difference between what is legal and what is moral in the case of business, right? Like, there are people that operate in, within the confines of business law and where they live and what the society that they reside in is going to allow them to do, and the government says is okay, and then what everybody thinks is right. So yeah, I completely agree.
So while I feel the same way he does, you can't run things that way.
Yeah, true.
It's impossible.
That's fair.
Things would completely fall apart. Onepeg's a good dude. No, I don't think he's a bad dude. and like, again, he's looking at it from the perspective of a gamer, probably someone who loves Dark and Darker. So yeah, to him, this sucks. There it is.
Oh, and he posted the YouTube link.
Ignore this rule nonstop.
Thanks, man.
They do, to an extent. Actually, yes, you can take the idea and run with it. I can take a World of Warcraft or League of Legends type game. Oh yeah, no, I don't know where the line is, okay? I'm not sure where the line is, but can we, like, so what is being alleged here? What is being alleged is that they worked at this company and then they leaked assets publicly and then used the assets after they leaked them publicly in their own game. I mean, I think that's bad. Like, if that happened. And again, there's no evidence that this happened. Like, it's just somebody saying this and some, like, vague picture comparisons.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's 100% bad.
Yeah, they have no proof of that, though.
Like, we're not talking about a
theoretical... I think if they actually had proof, they would already have taken them to court.
Here.
I think they would have thrown the book at him. Because there's no way that Nexon wouldn't have wanted to recapture the IP that looks like it's already taking off during the playtest. There's no way that they wouldn't want to recapture that. I think if they had anything, they already would have taken him to court.
Like, there's a very specific thing that was said, and if that specific thing that was said happened, I think that, yes, that would be bad. So, yeah, I mean, there's the video right there. On Ironmace's website, they said they worked for a greedy developer. I mean, maybe they did. I have no idea. But either way, you shouldn't be able to just like leak the assets and then just effectively take them and do that. There's no evidence of game assets being used from P3. Every asset on the game is from an Unreal Engine marketplace. Yep. Yeah, well, if there's no evidence for it, then it should just go immediately in.
The question would be is when they showed up on the Unreal Engine marketplace, right? Like for certain assets, whether or not it coincided with the timeline and whether or not Nexon could prove that one of their employees was the person that leaked it to the marketplace and put it there, right? And like how stuff would get listed there in the first place. And I think that in order to be able to prove that chain would be a pretty tall order.
Into the garbage. Corporations are so pathetic whenever it comes to taking risks on a good idea. They scrap Dark and Darker, only attempt to make a Tarkov clone. Stuff with microtransactions, it would have 100% failed. Now they see Dark and Darker becoming this incredibly successful passion product, and they want to go back on that decision to cut the game. I don't really know if that's true or not. It's most level of disgust and greed. That's just what happens. I mean, again, I do hope Dark and Darker isn't negatively affected by this. Of course, right? I mean, the game...
Hobbs level philosophical discussion.
It's not really like my kind of game in that way.
Well, yeah, of course. And then like the other question is how many assets are we talking about being taken, if any were taken at all, right? And of course, they have to prove that anything was taken. If you're going to try and claim that like a brick in a wall or like a pillar or a barrel, you know, something like that was actually like sourced from them, I think, and then be able to prove that it was somebody at Dark and Darker that took it, I think that that's going to be a pretty tall order. There was an interesting comment in that YouTube video, actually in response to that pinned comment that I saw this morning that I want to pull real quick, if I can find it. So since I posted this, somebody replied this here. They did not leak source code because the project shifted to P7, but the project shifted to P7 because the key developer leaked source code and resources. Here's what multiple Nexon employees are claiming at the Team Blind, I don't know what that is, and specific timeline describing what happened to Project P3 from Korean Game Journal. The reporter claims that it was cross-checked from multiple sources. During Nexon's internal audit, they found P3 director was leaking project resources to unauthorized private external servers, including game resources, assets, development documents, and most importantly, source code and game build. But critically, he was proposing his teammates to collectively resign from Nexon. I'm assuming that he meant resign, not resignate. From Nexon, saying P3 will be canceled by Nexon, which was at the time being false. He also mentioned he's getting investments from outside of Nexon. This was the main reason why he got fired. So the guy at the head that they're talking about would be either Terry or SDF in this case. August of 21, Nexon decided to shift its project to P7. It was not because Nexon thought P3 isn't up to their standards by any means, but mainly due to the resource leak incident of Project P3. P3 was already in the plan to be released as the first game from their sub-brand Mint Rocket, so the P3 project was supposed to be released prior to Dave the Diver. I don't know what that is. But since the vast majority of developers in P3 quit Nexon, the remaining dev team had no choice but to shift its project to something else, and it became P7. Some of the developers involved in the situation, including the director who got fired, were sued by Nexon for violating Unfair Competition Prevention and Trade Secret Protection Act. In October 2021, the director who got fired by Nexon established Ironmace, bringing some of the developers from Project P3. So they say that the lead dev got sued in August of 21, and then they started Ironmace in October of 21. The police sent investigation results and documents to the prosecution, but they requested additional investigation last year. South Korean prosecution normally order reinvestigation when they think there's no charge whatsoever, not additional investigation. So it looks like if this is to be believed, according to this guy that posted this, and I'm going to assume that they natively speak Korean, and the translation is into English. What it looks like is they were sued in August. That's cleared, and then they started the company. So even if this part is true, the powers that be, the cops and the court system say that there wasn't enough evidence to bother like punishing them, apparently, and it looks like it's fine. I asked him for a source, and he said it came from the same news journal you mentioned in the comment. So there must have been an update to the article at some point, maybe after I posted the video where I had said that they hadn't cited sources, and maybe they finally decided they were going to mention that there were sources cited. Yeah, the way that this is written is it looks like this could be legit, the way that this is written. But even if that's true, based on this timeline, then that's also saying then that they had gone to court for this already and they're cleared of it, apparently, because it wouldn't have taken a year plus, almost a year and a half, for the court system to have figured out the remaining bits of this. There's also a statement that Terry wrote an hour ago. Terry wrote a statement an hour ago on the Dark and Darker Discord. I want to address certain rumors that have started to circulate and reassure Dark and Darker fans that absolutely no stolen assets or code were used to make our game. Our code was built from scratch. Most of our assets are purchased from the Unreal Marketplace. All other assets and all game design docs were created in-house. This has already been audited by an outside agency. As far as we know, you cannot copyright a game genre. Regarding the lawsuit, we consider it a separate personal matter claimed on one of our team members. No lawsuit has been filed against Ironmace. So there you go. The game director, as cited in the article, would have been called in on that lawsuit for the leaking of assets, I guess, if that article is to be believed. Regardless, we believe in our teammate and we look forward to the resolution of their personal matter. Okay. Here, I'll hide my face. Building games is hard enough without all the rumors and distractions in our industry. This is why we chose to handle matters privately in respect to our peers in our industry. We've reached out through our back channels and do not believe the recent rumors were intentional and believe they are likely due to a disgruntled third party. For now, this will be our final statement on this matter. We are ready to defend if necessary, but we prefer to focus our energy on bettering our craft. We have a lot of work ahead of us for the next playtest, and we'll let our work do the talking. Finally, we would like to thank all of our fans for the kind support. You are the sole motivation to build bigger and better. As always, our aim is to stay directly and openly engaged with you. Thank you for your support. We hope to see you in the dungeons soon. I mean, the way that statement is fabricated looks exactly like the timeline, or would be talking akin to the timeline that was in that article that was drafted from the This Is Game blog. So, like, the way that was written looks exactly to follow what this guy is saying here in the comment. Well, they're saying most assets were created either in-house or they're bought from the Unreal Marketplace, right? Like, and we also have to look at, like, there's a lot of different ways that you can talk about assets. There's source code, net code, physical objects, like, there's only so many ways you're going to be arranged. Like Asmon said, there's only so many ways that you're going to be able to arrange a set of polygons to make a barrel, right? And how is Nexon going to say, like, well, that's our barrel, not your barrel? You know what I mean? And we know that the goblin models, the skeleton models, like the player models, the troll boss, the cave troll boss, most all of that stuff is from the marketplace. It's all bought from the asset store. And then if you look at, like, the bosses, right, like the big bosses, like the Lich and the Ghost King is a sheet with a crown on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna try and copyright claim, like, trademark infringement on a floating sheet. You know what I mean? Like, where's the stolen goods, right? It's actually my barrel. So, I mean, from what I can see, I don't think Nexon really has a leg to stand on here, man. And Terry, even in this case, Terrence, he's the CEO of Ironmace. For him to already acknowledge that this lawsuit that's being, the director who got fired was sued by Nexon for violating Unfair Competition Prevention and Trade Secret Protection Act. Like, there's the personal lawsuit that he's talking about. They didn't sue Ironmace. They sued the guy, right? Just because the guy works for Ironmace doesn't mean that Ironmace has a lawsuit. It just means the guy does. See what I mean? Especially since they levied the lawsuit before the creation of the company. Like, I think Ironmace is kind of in the clear, man, if I'm being honest. Why, as a AA company, do you hire with that past? Because he owns it. Like, he's one of the, like, assuming that this guy is who they're talking about, and if this guy is like their creative director, I mean, he's part of the group that created the company, right? He wasn't hired. He was one of the guys that made the business. Like my point is that Nexon has to be able to prove, one, Nexon is suing a guy for saying that he leaked assets. 1. 2, the government came back and said, you don't have enough information to legitimately sue this guy. You're going to have to provide something better, which they haven't done yet, and it's been over a year, right? Lawsuit's still pending, but they haven't generated whatever it is that is going to satisfy the government for saying, yeah, you violated trade secrets or whatever. 3, they also have to prove that whatever was leaked by this guy, if he's found guilty of it, ended up pushing that into Ironmace for Ironmace having created the game that they're creating right now with whatever was leaked from the guy after they find that the guy was guilty.
You are a piece of human garbage.
You see what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of steps. That's a lot of steps. So, like, you know what I mean? If it's true, Nexon is within the legal right to, like, sue the shit out of him, right? But you have to go through all of that first, right? You have to prove that the guy that you say was leaking assets was actually doing it. You have to, like, they have to find him guilty of having leaked those assets. Then they have to then they have to take the step and say that there's a connection between the guy that leaked assets, if he actually leaked them, between him being found guilty and working at Ironmace and then using those assets inside of Ironmace's game. Like, you're talking years. Like, Dark and Darker will have become a finished product, be on the market, and be making money hand over fist by the time that finds all of its way through court. Especially considering that the lawsuit on the one guy still hasn't found its way to fruition after being levied in August of 2021. It's going to be 2 years in a handful of months here that they still haven't found a resolution on that. You see what I'm saying? If it's not, which means that it's not a slam dunk. They don't have enough proof. So if they don't have enough proof even for that dude, they're definitely not going to have enough proof once if and when those things ended up inside of Dark and Darker. I think they've got a long road, man. More than began the Dark and Darker project while said person was still employed by Nexon. But they didn't find Dark and Darker while he was employed by Nexon. He was gone already. He was already fired. Even if it's proven or whatever, Nexon isn't going to shut down money, they'll take a cut. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. It may not be that they just take a cut. They may want directorial control. It might not be enough just to get a share of the money. They might want to run it. They might want to change it. They think that they could get more out of the IP than what the IP makes. See what I mean? Like, he was fired. Somebody working for the company at the directorial level for the project got fired, got sued. The government said, you don't have enough evidence. You have to get us more. That was in August of 2021. We're past a year and a half on August 2021. Well, about a year and a half. Year and a half from August 2021. They still haven't come to a resolution on that. There isn't enough evidence. In October of 2021, they started Ironmace. So I'm going to assume that the establishment of Ironmace was done by Terry and SDF, and the person that they're talking about might be SDF. But even still, if you can't prove that he was the bad guy, you're having trouble proving that he was the bad guy, you're going to have a lot harder of a time proving that the bad guy that you say is the bad guy that you haven't been able to prove is the bad guy has taken the stuff from you that you say he did and is now putting it into this new game. Like, that's a whole other leap. The action of the disgruntled employee is what makes this stink, but that's my own morals. Like, yeah, like, the way that the article's written is it looks like somebody's got a vendetta. Honestly, I don't think that Ironmace is going to have anything to worry about. Like I said before, if they had any actual, like, evidence to push, I think that the evidence would have been presented already, and there already would have been lawsuits, like, pending for Ironmace as a company. And I think that if they thought that it was going to be a dunk, they would have already dunked on him, because there's already, like, huge money earning potential here. And there's no way that a company as big as Nexon would not have seen that by now. Like, it doesn't make any sense. They would have seen it already. They would have already have lawyers on it. They're probably trying to find something. And the fact that they haven't yet speaks volumes. Nasty corporate revenge attack. It's possible, right? Yeah, of course. But again, like, to the court's credit, they're basically saying you don't have enough here. So I don't think Ironmace has anything to worry about. It just looks like jealous, you know?